Hey there guys, Urzatron here with your HAAT prep video. Is it HAAT? HAAT, Heroic AAT Tank Raid. For those of you who were around for our first attempt at HAAT, we did extensive roster reviews. We assembled this massive spreadsheet where we told people what to farm and focus on. It was helpful at the time. It gave us an overall sense of where we were back then. But I think now everybody in the guild is pretty smart to know what teams are successful, what characters to invest in. So I'll just take this opportunity to talk about what was needed to improve on our first attempt. I'll mention some teams for each phase, talk about where we failed, name some leads, some alternate characters you can use to kind of mix and match and build the squads for the various phases. So first up, why we failed our first HAAT attempt. Really, it was a lack of quality mods on raid teams. I'll say this, if you're showing up to this HAAT without leveled mods with set bonuses on all your characters, you are totally doing it wrong and it's not very much help. Last time around, we had a few people who didn't really understand how much mods were a requirement. They will scale up your damage significantly and you absolutely need them. No, it's not sexy or fun to farm mods, but it's an absolute must. And if you need help with how to mod your characters, just ask the team. We've got a lot of URLs we can give you. We can point you to various websites that kind of lay it all out. If you're challenge locked, I'll say just be sure to get health mods and level them up. That'll help. Speed secondaries are very important. I would say the most important thing is having some speed arrows that you can move around to all your various teams. And be sure you're doing that to maximize the damage. And speed is obviously very important here. The next thing is a lack of P2 droid teams. This was a big reason why we failed last time around. I'll talk more about it in detail when we get to P2, but just know that we had a lot of teams, that people that had droids that had teams, but they're missing components and pieces here and there, and it was actually, a lot of them were undergeared and unmodded. So I'll talk more about that when we get to P2. The third thing here we want to do is maximize each each attempt. This is extremely important, and I'm sure you guys have heard Sky say it's not a marathon, it's a marathon, not a race. You should really be taking 3 to 5 attempts as practice runs to see what your team is fully capable of. You can use the retreat function, which is in the settings menu, and then that'll back you out so your damage isn't wasted. If you feel like your RNG is good, by all means go with it. But we need to be taking our time. We have 48 hours to get through the whole thing. So really just be thorough with it and feel like if you got a good run in, just let your damage be. But really understand what your team can do, and then you'll also learn obviously where you can improve. And the last thing here is communication. It wasn't horrible last time. We had people following the rules, Silicon, who speaks German, Grid, following, the way we're doing it is in the last 10% of the phase. If you're in that last 10%, just let the chat know if you're in or out, so that way people know not to go in if you're currently in a run, so that way no damage is wasted. Once you see that out, feel free to go in and let everybody else know you're in, so we're just not wasting any damage with the phase. So those are the 4 things that I think we can improve upon, the reasons why we failed on our first attempt almost over a month ago. So let's go on to phase 1. So for phase 1, we need everybody in the guild to do 2% or more damage to clear the phase. There's 4.3 million damage total in the entire phase 1. 2% is 86,000 damage per person. Obviously, we're going to have a few people going well above and beyond that number, and that's fantastic. Those people are running fully loaded Jedi teams. In our last attempt, we cleared the phase pretty quickly with 42 out of 50 people contributing. The recommended team here is Jedi. Leads are Annnnnnnd, Ayla, Jedi Knight Anakin. In my opinion, Ayla's the best of the 3. She's got great tenacity perks with the Jedi, health gain benefits going on as well. Annnnnd and JKA are the other 2. I give a slight lean to JKA simply because Annnnnd requires some trial and error to really maximize your damage. You got to be really careful not to do a full team counter when Grievous has his turn meter gain buff arrow up. Ideally, you want someone like JKA or B2 to land buff immunity on General Grievous, and always be focusing on the B2 battle droid and take that out, and then focus fire on Grievous. As for alternates, any of those leaders that I just named, if you have multiples, could be a good alternate. Ahsoka, Yoda, with his tenacity up. Yoda can even be used as a leader as well. Qui-Gon Jinn, Ethkoth. Basically just your best raid eligible Jedi to fill out your team here. There's also a Solo, Zeta, Kylo Ren team that can work here. I think Grid is the only one in the guild that has that. So worst case scenario, Grid, you get us through P1. Lastly, mods. Don't stress too much about mods for this phase. We cleared it last time and we're much improved since then. So I'll just say have the mods level 15 and some set bonuses going on. So for phase 2, we need everybody in the guild to do 2% or more damage to the phase. The mark you should be shooting for is 384,000 damage or more. You can probably achieve that with a relatively decent droid squad. Last attempt, this is where things really became challenging and became a slog for us. We had people with droid teams, but they were either undergeared or undermodded, missing a piece here or there with Nebit or Engineer or 86 or 88. They're just missing one piece. I think actually last time Abev and myself were the only members to get above 750,000 damage with our droids. So just please make sure you have a crit damage set on both 88 and 86. It'll add a couple 100,000 in damage if you've got them modded correctly. This has been a huge focus for the guild. This is what we've been really harping on the most. And based on what I've seen in chat, I'm pretty optimistic that we'll do better this time around, a lot better. I've seen just people promoting the hell out of their Jawas and droids. The ideal team here is HK47 lead, flank him with 88 and 86, Jawa Engineer and Chief Nebit. That is the team for this phase. The main strategy here is to get the morale 2 on your topples, and to achieve that, morale 3 is great, but morale 2 should be the goal here. To achieve that, you want to shoot down the main cannon and the side cannons before the tank, the main body of the tank gets a turn. So you want to do that all in one cycle. You can also use your Wigs team here, your Rebel team, but let me just stop you and just say it's the Wigs Rebel team with people who do not have Admiral Akbar, Raid Han, or Princess Leia. All of those characters provide buffs for the teammates. That prevents you from getting wiped in the air by the airstrike in P4. So that's why we say we could move them up to P2 if you're missing one of those, or I should say 2 of those characters: Admiral Akbar, Raid Han, and Princess Leia. As for mods on those guys, you want critical damage and critical chance on both Wedge and Biggs. As for Lando, you can do critical chance across the board, which I think most people do. But if you like to gamble, it is Lando. You can do crit chance and then crit damage X4. Another team for this phase is the GOAT team, the greatest of all time. That relies on big sabers from Zader and Coldblade. Not very many people have this, so I won't spend a whole lot of time talking about it. So we'll just go on to P3 here. Alright guys, onward to phase 3. In phase 3, we need everybody to do 2%, which is about 240,000 damage or more. The whole phase is about 12 million damage. To achieve this, there's a few different teams you can use. The 2 main ones are Chirpatine and T-Botine. We've also got a niche Dathcha-led TFP tank team with Jawa. I actually think I'm the only one in the guild that uses that team, but it's capable of doing some nice damage. Anyways, with Chirpatine and T-Botine, you want to pick either one of those Ewoks, whatever you have, and then add Palpatine and a couple of tanks. The idea here is you want to get the turn bonuses from T-Bo and Chirpa-led teams to turn Palp into a machine gun. So just take Palp and shock all the B1 battle droids until Palp starts just doing his thing. He'll just start getting lots of turn meter, and he'll just continue to shock over and over and over. You have your taunting tanks up there to provide cover for when the cannon comes online and starts dishing out, massive damage. So make sure to put a taunt up when it's about to fire. Same idea with T-Botine. You can even add TFP to that team. I'm a Chirpatine kind of guy, so I don't really know the ins and outs of T-Botine, but just ask in the chat, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that can answer the question for you. We do have a lot of people that have T-Botine instead of Chirpa. This random niche Dathcha team I mentioned is Dathcha lead, Jawa. I use Scarif Rebel Pathfinder, Stormtrooper Han, and TIE Fighter Pilot. You can also use guys like Ugnaught and Jawa Scavenger here, and any other taunting tanks you may have, Chewie, Poe, that sort of thing. And the idea here is that you want to use Dathcha because he allows your guys to give defensive down to droids. So you use Dathcha and Jawa to stun the B1 battle droids, and well, you mainly want to just stun them to make sure the one with the green arrow buff doesn't do anything. But these debuffs will make TFP, TIE Fighter Pilot, super powerful, and he'll just deal massive damage. You'll also want Jawa there because Jawas, both Dathcha and Jawa, they'll call a random ally to assist, and hopefully it's TFP, and he just kind of just goes and goes and goes. As for the tanks, obviously you just want to throw their taunt up when the cannon's about to go off. So that's really it for P3. Those 2 to 3 teams are pretty much. There's also Emperor Palpatine led one as well. I don't really know a whole lot about that since I have Sherpa. All right, everybody. Finally, Phase 4, where we need everybody in the guild to do 2% or more damage to clear the phase. The mark you should be shooting for is 384,000 damage or more. This one's pretty easy to explain. It's all the rebel teams I mentioned in P2. Ideally wedge-led with Biggs, Lando, and then 2 of the following 3, Raid Han, Princess Leia, or Admiral Akbar. You kill the B2s and you topple the tank, ideally going for Morale 2. And then when the tank is toppled and gains about 70 to 90% turn meter, you want to make sure you have the buff up. And this is your tactical genius from Admiral Akbar. Princess Leia, I believe, gives a crit 1, and then Han does his shrug, and then he gives everybody crit chance up. So you want to have those buffs online when the tank's about to get full turn meter recovering from a topple, and that'll prevent your guys from getting wiped in an airstrike. It takes a little bit of practice, but you'll eventually know exactly when you need to put the buffs up, and it gets easier and easier every time. The first time I did it, I was like, I don't know how like Silver and those guys are doing it. Like, it just takes a lot of micromanaging, but you'll eventually get the hang of it and get better at it. We've also got our Princess Zodi All-Stars, which I won't spend a whole lot of time talking about other than to say I'm super jealous of Sky and Silver because I want Princess Zodi so badly. Anyways, those guys are our top guys, and they don't need coaching or direction from me. They know more than I do. So that's basically it. Throw whatever you got left at it, and let's hope it's enough. Just want to say I enjoyed the guild. I love doing this sort of thing. Thanks for allowing me to nerd out with you guys. Yay, Star Wars. So yeah, good luck. Let's have a good HAAT, and may the Force be with us.